What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso. Little bonus Friday episode, Discord mailbag. Not quite an insomnia Discord mailbag because it's released at a normal time in the middle of the day, but got a nice backlog of questions in the Discord that I want to answer. So if you're watching on YouTube or you're watching as a non-War Room subscriber, subscribe to the Discord, and then we can answer all your questions every single week, whether it's in this format or any of our other episodes. Also, thank you everyone who's reached out. I asked for some recommendations for a tailgate company for Badlands to partner with, and we got a lot of emails from you to go through now, which is exactly what I wanted. So keep you guys posted there. For now, eyes on 8/22. That's the live show. That's the big date to have circled. First question, JP Waxer. This is an addendum to a question he had from Brian about a Brian Costello article about if the Jets can have an offense that is better than expectations, a top 16 offense, let's call it, isn't it a fair assumption they'll be a playoff team? And I think you're basically saying, I think most people are assuming the Jets are going to have one of the worst offenses in football. I'm not necessarily sold that's going to be the case. Now, top 16, if you're going to hit that threshold, there's 14 playoff teams. I think it's okay to think the Jets will probably be a top 15, top 16 defense because of Sauce, Quinnen, Quincy, Sherwood. There's talent. Jermaine, Will McDonald, Glenn, Wilkes. They should be in the top half of the league. I'm not sold they're going to be a top 10 defense with their current defensive line and safety group. I don't think they're going to be a bottom 5 defense. Generally, if you are good enough to be in the top half of the league in both, it feels like you're an 8-9, 9-8 team. How are your special teams? Like, I don't know who the Jets kicker or returner is right now. Can special teams win them a game or two instead of lose them a game or two like it did last year? That could kind of be the thing on the margins, that if the Jets are going to be 17th in offense and 15th in defense, but horrible on special teams, they're probably going to be 8-9. If they're really good on special teams, then maybe they're 9-8 or 10-7 as a pleasant surprise. Offensively, it's going to come down to what Angstrom can get out of Fields. That's the variable here. Can Fields be, the 19th best passer in the league while being electric as a runner? If that's the offensive formula with a good line, yeah, I think you got a puncher's chance at being a lot better than most people think they're going to be. Next one, this was a long one from JWP, which kind of dovetails on our conversation about the scouting department and Muji and Glenn inheriting scouts. And because of that, just picking for traits on day 3. And it's kind of like looking for the justification of what the Jets' day 3 strategy was. I think my bigger thoughts on this is that, like Connor said, the turnover of the scouting department is going to take probably like 12 to 16 months. Now, it's not fully fair to give Glenn and Muji a pass for day 3 picks you don't like because they're leftover scouts. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of ways for them to formulate their own opinions. I do think, considering the tight turnaround, did they probably rely on people in the room who've already done the work? Did they probably do something like, hey, we really want a speed receiver, and this is how the board broke, and this is the fastest guy left. We like this guy. We brought him in for a visit. With the Miami guys, we like the coaching staff there. We feel good about the POV of our area scout. We want to double up from that unit based on the board. We'll see if those decisions turn out to be smart ones or not. I don't like removing any culpability from them. I want to see what they do over the next 12 to 14 months to change how they approach day 3. I think our biggest problem with day 3 was less about the players and more about feel of the board. Could have you got Arian Smith 100 picks later? Did you need to trade up for Tyler Barron and lose a 2026 asset in the process? That's where more of my concerns are. Now, if either of those guys are good and a starter, then you don't care. But the odds are against that being the case. Let's see how it plays out. Got a question from David about Donovan Edwards potentially moving to receiver due to his lack of vision as a running back. And I know there's some concerns about his leg and his explosiveness. I mean, he's an interesting player, certainly has the pedigree. When you look at the undrafted free agent list, which we also got another question on from MBO960, like the Jets announce all their official undrafted free agents today. And then your eyes gravitate towards Edwards because, like, oh, I know that guy. Like, he was a prominent player in college. He had some juice once upon a time. Doesn't necessarily mean he has the best chance of making the roster. I think a guy like Page on the defensive line might have a better chance. I think Dean Clark at safety is clearly a guy they had a lot of interest in from the pre-draft process. I look at the safety depth chart. I think he's got a real chance to make the team. With Edwards, I'm curious if it's kind of like a hybrid role, like maybe like almost how they're going to think of Corley, where he's bouncing between being used as a runner and a pass catcher. I thought both Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis showed some nice things as a rookie. So he's got an uphill climb. Now, does he stick around as a practice squad player? Maybe. If he can catch the football exceptionally well, are the Jets thin enough at receiver where they kind of keep him in a hybrid role? Yeah, but he's not my most likely guy to make the roster of the undrafted free agents. I think Dean Clark comes to mind. I think probably one of the defensive linemen they added just because there's the clearest path there. Everyone's going to gravitate towards Brady Cook because he's the only quarterback and he's got some athleticism. I'm not sure I really see it, but I could be wrong. I hope to be wrong. So we'll see. We know they also spent a decent amount of money on the dude they brought over from Germany. Interior offensive line spot, battling maybe be the 10th lineman with Xavier Newman. We'll see. They have 7 players in the draft. I think all 7 are going to stick at least to start the year on the 53. So there's only so many roster spots there. Testing Edwards at receiver, I don't think it's a crazy idea, considering what his skill set is. And I think it's something that's going to be discussed throughout the summer and throughout the preseason. From that QC guy, is it too late in the offseason to still hold out hope for them to make a big move for a wide receiver too, like trading for Olave or something similar? It's definitely not too late. You can make this kind of move all the way up through the end of August. It's going to depend. Is there further roster shuffling from teams post June 1st? Teams get into training camp. Injuries happen. Guys pop. A rookie has a better summer than they expect, so a veteran feels expendable on a certain team. I am of the belief the Jets should still be doing diligence for another wide receiver. I don't think it hurts at this point to bring someone in the room. If you're going the cheap free agent route, sure. Give Gabe Davis a 1-year veteran minimum deal. He's probably better than every other receiver on the roster besides Garrett Wilson right now. And maybe he could find something that he had a few years ago in Buffalo and make a couple plays. Like, he's an NFL player. He can chew up reps. He's okay. He's not great. He's better than Tyler Johnson. He's better than Malachi Corley. And at this phase, he's probably better than both Josh Reynolds and Alan Lazard, who may not be here anyway. It's an okay move. I don't know if it's, moving the Jets win total in Vegas, but makes sense. You want guys who could chew up innings. If you're going to be more aggressive, I think before Olave, I'd really be calling the Packers about a guy like Dobbs or Wicks or maybe to a lesser extent Watson. There's just a lot of talent in that room with a little more upside, I feel like. With Olave, I worry about, the injuries. If you're giving up like next to nothing for him, it's not an insane thought. But the Jets should absolutely not be done considering adding veterans to their roster at the receiver or the defensive line position. And call the Colts about Alec Pierce. Call around to teams that might be amendable to moving a pass catcher. I think it's certainly worth doing. It doesn't have to happen in May. As a matter of fact, I think it's more likely to be a closer to training camp thing. But the window hasn't passed at all. I still think we're going to see a couple different moves around the Jets at receiver and at defensive line. From Rory, what are the 3 offensive concepts you'd like to see Tanner bring over from Detroit that match up well with the new and young talent on the offense? I mean, look, the most important thing Engstrom can do is how can he creatively use Justin Fields as a runner and maximize his skill set as a passer? What can he do in sort of the RPO game, the boot game? How does he cut the field in half for him? How does he set up opportunities for him to rip the ball down the field a little bit off play action? That's what I'm keeping an eye on. How is Fields used as a runner? When is it done situationally? Can he be smart in using both running backs at the same time, like we saw signs of in Detroit with Gibbs and Montgomery, because you have that with Breece and Braylon, Breece and Isaiah Davis. I want to see his ability to do things like that overall and just be creative. Motion. Move Garrett Wilson around. Start Garrett Wilson in the backfield. Motion him to the slot so teams can't easily double team him. Throw the ball to Breece Hall the way you threw it to Jahmyr Gibbs. That's the kind of stuff that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. Really maximize these players' skill set instead of just going with that straightforward ahead approach. And, it's not a one-to-one comparison with everything he had in Detroit, but How did you free up Amon-Ra St. Brown? Do the same stuff with Garrett Wilson. Mason Taylor is not Sam Laporta, but can you look at how Fields worked with Cole Kmet and other tight ends in his career and find some things that facilitate their chemistry? Engstrand's a big X factor here. Young offensive coordinator, studied in a really interesting place that was very forward thinking on offense. Let's hope he migrates some of that stuff over to what the Jets end up doing. Last question from T3 Bride. The consensus in the Discord and from Badlands is that the Jets were the worst coached team in the league last year. Who was the second and third worst? And what is the expectation for Glenn to be top 15, top 10, top 5? I mean, the other worst coached teams in the leagues last year were probably the Patriots and the Jaguars, both of whom made coaching changes. They come to mind. The Giants weren't too far behind, and they're rolling it back with Dable. Let's see how much of an improvement New England and Jacksonville get. New England will be much improved, as we don't want to be too bitter about Vrabel. TBD on, Liam Cohn. I kind of could see Kellen Moore struggling with that same situation. For Glenn, I don't expect him to be top 5 in year 1. I don't expect him to be top 10 year 1. If he could be in the top half of the league year 1, that's a good start. Can he hit and beat the McDaniel line? That's kind of what I look at, right? Can the Jets be better coached than Miami? McDaniel, pretty good coach, but has kind of had more negatives than positives recently, and I feel like they always coach circles around the Jets. Can he outcoach him and steal a game or two from Miami this year? Can he steal a game from Vrabel? I don't think he's going to exceed McDermott yet, who's really just established a long culture of winning there. But could we leave a Jets-Dolphins game and be like, yeah, the Jets outcoached McDaniel and his staff today, and that team is actually on a downward trajectory and the Jets are on an upward trajectory? I'd like to see him get over that line this year. I don't want to see the team outcoached by the goddamn Saints. I really don't want to see the team outcoached by the Panthers. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. Win the coaching battle, 5, 6, 7, 8 times this year instead of 0 times like the Jets last year. And that's a good step. He's a rookie coach. He's allowed a little rope to make some mistakes. Just don't be unprepared, disorganized, not reactive. Be forward thinking on offense, like the stuff I was just speaking about with Engstrom. Be aggressive on defense. Adjust mid-game. If teams are running the football down your throat. If we could get Glenn and Fields to both being in the top 16, 17 at their job in year 1 of this, the Jets aren't going to win 4 or 5 games. They're going to win 8 games and maybe flirt with a playoff spot, which would be a very pleasant surprise for a team that has bluntly no expectations going into this season. Our expectations are no Arizona, no San Francisco game from last year. Go 3-3 in the division. Don't lose any embarrassing games that you shouldn't. Show up every week, get better as the season goes on. And if they do that, they're going to have the signs of something there with their coaching staff. So thank you for the questions. Full weekend of content as always. Full week of content coming after. Talk to everybody soon. August 22nd, live show. Hold it on the calendar and make sure to subscribe to patreon.com/BadlandsTOJ.